Hello and welcome to JP Murray's Association Hustle Podcast. President of the Murray Company, JP's mission is to arm today's associations with insight and strategy to thrive in a progressively complex and competitive business landscape. 21st century associations must move forward with a little bit of hustle and revenue development at their core. Here's JP.
I've been thinking about talent trends this week. It started by a little bit of self-reflection, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, what kind of things do I need to learn? What kind of things do I need to kind of leverage in this new year? First of all, I've got to stay closer to the customer because the organic and kind of the inertia of being in an organization in Washington, D.C., for example, just isn't there. We're not going into town to do a meeting or have a business event or have a networking reception or anything like that. So it's a much different way of staying connected. It's Zoom calls. Heck, it might be a text. It might be just a phone call to say, hey, I noticed these changes you've made on your website, for example. I think they're great. Keep up the fantastic work. Some ways to stay connected. Because I'm also very aware that there is more content produced, more communication materials, posting more often just to keep up because of this growth and this unbelievable amount of information that's being made available for everybody. Along those lines, LinkedIn is the most important business network right now. I've got to make sure that I'm doubling down on my posting and my thought leadership and engaging people through that platform. How do I know it's the most important? Well, marketers are ruining the platform. People are spamming me in it now, so that must mean that it works. Storytelling needs to be a real component of connecting with potential customers. The skill around storytelling and humanizing the value proposition that you might be able to offer someone else, or the little examples that you can give about how you benefited by using a product or service and conveying that to prospects, and all this kind of stuff is going to be absolutely essential because that helps us connect, that helps us humanize, also makes pretty authentic thought leadership. One other thing, learning and acting on it. Why? Because things are changing so freaking fast. Example, hey, in the last 6 months, I learned how to run Facebook ads, edit a podcast. Neither one of those very well, but I got to know how, got to be familiar, got to be aware so I can kind of know what's happening. Also, I'm using the phone better to sell our services because I'm acting and learning. I'm texting prospects, keeping in touch with them. I'm adapting and I'm changing these things so I can be better at the job because things are happening so quickly, I can't do it the way that I used to or we'd be out of business. This had me thinking a great deal about the people we need to sustain our organizations. There are shifts I would like to mention. And to do that, I want to tell a story. First of all, I've learned that the best rise to the top. They are demonstrating new, different skills than they had before, and maybe even skills and qualities they had no idea that existed within them. My top salesperson talked to me about this a couple days ago. I'm looking at her numbers, and I go, how are you hitting these numbers in the environment that we're in? And frankly, the rest of our team wasn't able to. And it can't all be about, well, you've got good accounts and things like that, because every account had its challenges in this unique time that we're in. So my top salesperson talked about the ways she adapted. One, a key was a positive attitude no matter what. I asked her why. She goes, what's the choice that I have? I think about it. Back in Oklahoma, every once in a while you drive in a pickup truck, you'd get it in the ditch. Well, now I don't even know if we can pull this thing out of the ditch. So it's best not to get there in the first place. Positive attitude, because if you let this bring you down, you don't know how long you're going to be in it. The second thing, she became very comfortable with change. And she had been very uncomfortable with change before. Kind of stayed in her lane, a great performer, but basically did the same thing over and over again at scale and was very good at it. But she said, I had to change and adapt from in-person to virtual events and understand how to explain them. organizations that were shifting their government affairs program for one that was more about regulatory affairs to one that was more about keeping the industry open, how to navigate PPP loans and interpreting that for the members, and how the association was doing that as an example. Working from home with my kids in the house. Now, she was always telecommuting, or had been for the last several years, but the fact that she was doing it while her kids, all under 5, were there all day long because of the pandemic was certainly something different. Now, she said there were benefits to that because I'm with them more. And there's downsides of that because I'm with them more. And it's harder to do some of the sales work that you need. Incredible insights on a high performer. Made me think about the staffs that we need to move forward, because it's obvious any kind of weakness or strength we have as companies have been exposed here over the last 10 months or so. Multidisciplined staffs are going to be very important. We have been through, over the last decade, I would argue, an era of specialization. Social media, technology, events, membership, things like that. Folks were kind of in their lane, and they developed deep skills in those areas. My point is that now we have a convergence of so many vertical activities in our organizations that they're all kind of integrated. Events are digital, which requires tech, event planning, content management, marketing that are all a little bit different. All of these kind of talents are necessary. Is your 25-year meeting planner that's been ordering coffee in Danish in a hotel able to change into this environment? Or are they not relevant anymore? So here are my recommendations. It's time for you to deploy an entire team of multidiscipline, jack of all trades, utility players, if you want to use a sports analogy. Folks that can do a little bit of everything. And that team should be talented, for sure, young at heart, willing to adapt people. The skills or the qualities I'm looking for are these: digital, social media, fast, independent, entrepreneurial, collaboration skills, and energetic, self-motivated. Notice I did not say experienced. I'm going to make bets on some of these new skills over experience because things are moving so quickly in uncharted waters that I need the flexibility, the nimble, the fast, and the energetic, and people that can manage themselves. What kind of leaders do I think we need? Oh, man, I've been thinking about this one a lot too, because I've got to change. I've got to be more certain, make decisions, certainly have to communicate well. But I'm looking right now at more actions over communications. And what I mean by that is this. We're all pretty good at making statements now. Frankly, we've got a media company in our hands. It's called the mobile phone. I've made a statement for our company during the racial justice demonstrations of a few months ago. I made a statement just yesterday about the break-in our Capitol in Washington, D.C. as well. Kind of tired of doing this, to be honest. I want to run a damn business. I don't want to have to be making statements about social issues, but hey, maybe we should have been all along and we wouldn't be having these problems. But I want to do something about it. For example, we just had our first business leadership diversity program session. 9 students from minority communities learning about business, entrepreneurism. I'm going to teach them next week with my colleagues about how to sell. We want to do something about the opportunity gap. We can flap our gums about what we want, but what are you going to do about it? Because it's easy to talk. A little more difficult to move the ball down the field, put the lead on the target about what you want to change. That's what we're going to need, I think. And to take it from my colleague, Bethany Murphy, that's the salesperson I talked about, we may have skills and qualities that we didn't know about before. We just have to try with a positive attitude. Get out of your comfort zone and be willing to change, and do it from a different office than we've ever been used to. But we're up to it. Thanks for listening. We'll talk next week.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of J.P. Murray's Association Hustle Podcast. We'd love to connect with you. Check out our blogs at murraycompany.com and subscribe to our weekly newsletter. You can also connect with JP on LinkedIn and Twitter at JP Murray, as well as the Murray Company's Instagram and Facebook page. To purchase a copy of JP's book, Association Hustle: Top Strategies for Association Growth, go to jpmurray.com.